Chapter 7. For the first half of my life, I suffered from practically uncontrollable fits when traveling through new, uncharted lands, with a wild desire to drop everything of this world's modern facade and run as hard and as fast as possible away from it into the arms of God's unblemished creation. I learned, after one of these events appeared to those in my company to be a seizure, to control it. I treated it like a coy dog, always on a leash, its snout brushing my feet as I walked through life, but always right nearby, urging me to abandon human civilization and run with it. I couldn't rid myself of this feral dog because it was part of me, maybe a bigger part of me than I wanted to admit. However, with practice in the solitary wilderness I frequented, I could feel its pestering approaching, and could stomp my boot heel on the rope I had mentally tethered to it, snapping its imaginary head to the ground and controlling myself. But right now, I really desired to let it off the leash and chase it into oblivion, away from the pain welling up inside me over my father. It wasn't just very close. It was breathing hot, moist breath on my neck. I could almost decipher the sounds as words bidding me to run away. But for my mother, I might have. I heard a bit of ruckus upstairs. I could tell Mother was moving around, so I went back up and peeked in. She had his blanket off and his nightshirt unbuttoned, with a towel over his particulars, working the jar and her wand over him. She turned slightly, aware that someone was present, and saw me. "Oh, please, Raileanu, come in. Would you look at this?" she said nervously, yet quietly. I came the rest of the way through the door and shut it behind me. Coming to Mother's side, there was something different happening to the infection. The black branches and lines were receding. They were retracting ever so slowly. She was storing all of the motion in her original jar, not a new one, so I asked about it. "Son, is something you were told to look into. It may not be something we need to give the ranger yet. I made his jar a few moments ago, and as I was finishing the final parts of the spell, I watched the branches getting smaller, so I switched to the aura jar for the professor." She completed the task and handed me the jar for the ranger. "Let him know I will prepare for the burial, and let me be, if you don't mind, son," she said. "Mama, what does it mean?" I asked, watching her and trying to tell if I could discern anything out of the ordinary. "Nothing." "I have never heard of this before, magic or ordinary, cursed or infected. Whatever it is, I may try and extract a bit to cordon off in another jar for you to take with you as well. When I tried to do it before, it really hurt Daddy. It won't now. I definitely don't want it to go anywhere else. I will stay up here and do this work. Son, head down and put some dinner together for our guests." "Yes, ma'am. Love you, Mom." "Love you too. Dad is with God now. We must carry on." She never stopped working, looking straight at wherever her wand was working, so I went back out into the hallway and closed the door. I went down and began rustling around in the pantry. Honestly, not much, but I wasn't surprised. It occurred to me that today is a day I would greatly appreciate a magically prepared dinner. I went out front and asked for help, and those turkeys had already set a table and were finishing up a great pot of chili, accompanied by sourdough biscuits, carrots, and green beans on the side. What great people! I said a quick prayer of thanks, asking God to welcome my father. He would want me to tend to the things that must be done. So I went around and got feed and water for the animals to put out, and took the gray wolf a big bowl of chili, rubbing him on the head. He understood what had happened and stared at me with his big yellow eyes. It was the only time in my life I witnessed a wolf look sad. Mostly, they look at you like they're deciding whether they'll eat better if they let you bring them food, or if they should go ahead and eat you now. I gave him a good rub and headed back outside. I set the table, Oh, they also had sweet tea with chipped ice in a pitcher. So I poured myself a glass. She all right, son? Barthou asked. I nodded. She is preparing the jar for you and getting him ready for burial. She has to be alone until it's time. Your parents are some of the best, most decent, Christian, magical folk in all the country of Texas, son. It has been a great honor to have known them all these years. Perhaps you don't know this, but your daddy wrote me a letter saying how trustworthy I was back when I was only a hired hand around this territory. It's how I ended up going into fetching rascally wizards. When nobody volunteered to catch a fellow who'd cursed a banker after getting too much farwater in him, I did, and brought him here. After a couple more with no conflagrations arising, he recommended me be badged. And that was that. He filled a bowl, plopped a biscuit on top, and sat across from me. Arterous, still amazed and trying to hide his being baffled by everything he sees and tastes, also sits and begins his first bowl of Texas chili. After a few minutes, he gets a big drink of tea and, upright in posture, dabs his mouth properly with his napkin and says, "From what native animal is the meat in the chili?" Barthou chuckles a bit, and I smile and keep eating. I knew when I opened the door what meat it was. I don't know why he likes it so much, but I'll let him explain. "Armadillo tail," Barthou says, and waits, smiling bigger in anticipation. "What's an armadillo?" Arterous asks. "Well, son, it's a little critter who is all armored, see? Digs around in the dirt and leaves looking for worms and grubs." Barthou makes little digging and sniffing impressions with his hands and face. Then he taps the side of his head with his pointy finger. "They ain't too bright, don't see well, don't seem to hear well, and have big, strong tails they can whoop you with if you ain't careful." Arterous looked bemused at first, but as Barthou continued, he began to show amused disbelief. "They have big old claws they dig with, a pointed little snoot they root around with for bugs." The whole time he is imitating the claws and pointy nose with his hands and face again. "The way I see it, there's so many of 'em about that once in a while, if in a pick real careful, I can get a big old fella, one who's had lots of little ones already. No harm in that. Plus, the tail meat is pretty darn good, ain't it?" Well, about halfway through the thorough explanation, he stopped and stared. The chances he had ever consumed the tail of an armored animal, who is half blind and deaf, who eats grubs is, well, 0. He thought, chewed a bit, and swallowed. "It is quite tasty, I will not deny it. But I feel you are amusing yourself with the description of this beast at my expense, sir." Barthou whipped out his wand, tapped in the air above the table, and a glowing likeness of an armadillo appeared. "How big are these creatures?" Arterous asked, his eyes large and absorbing the image like a child at a zoo. "Oh, about 2 to 3 feet long, about 40 pounds big uns get. My daddy found a baby un once, raised it up for about 5 years till it passed on. It would sleep with him, but warn't worth spit for nothing. Dumb as all get out. Then would leap 6 feet straight up if you startled it," Bart recalled, chuckling as he shoveled up another big spoonful of chili. "Those are ordinary creatures, not magical?" Arterous asked, still thinking we were pulling his leg. "Nah, just ordinary critters, like possums, skunks, coons, and the like," Barthou said, while chewing, which was a habit my mother had forbidden, causing me to tense up. Barthou did not have many opportunities to converse with people in the course of his duties, and was very grateful for the company. So I relented on my teeth gritting and chose instead to watch the enjoyment he had in explaining armadillos to a magical cavalry officer from Austria. After a few more chuckles and exchanges, Barthou had finished his bowl and, wiping his mouth on his sleeve, stood and finished his tea. Raileanu, can you tell me if it's all right to get to carving your daddy's tomb after dinner? He asked, taking another bite of biscuit while standing. Certainly, sir. It would be a gift for us, I told him. It honestly would. I've attended funerals in Europe, South America, and several in Texas over the last 35 years. Too often here, as in any unsettled country, funeral proceedings can be Spartan. No fancy dress, no weeping lines of passers-by for an hour, no service in a medieval cathedral. Many times, it is nothing more than one decent person with time and ability who can drag up enough big rocks to keep bears and mountain lions, coyotes and foxes from dismembering the deceased. To have such good friends here, a proper burial will mean a great deal. We finished eating as Mother came out, clearly taking requisite time to compose herself for company. She looked at the meal, smiling gratefully, having to wipe a couple of squirrely tears that leaked out. Only one thing is missing, boys. She waved her wand, and a steaming pan of peach cobbler appeared, accompanied by a big glass bowl of whipped, heavy, sweet cream. A woman's touch is so easily overlooked by hard men, my lady, the ranger pointed out. Thank you, ma'am. It has been a coon's age since I enjoyed a peach cobbler. That brought Barthou back to the bench. She joined us seated, and we heaped a mass of its magnificence on our plates, ignoring all mature manners. Often, ladies of the prairie here extract great pleasure from making irresistible food for hard-working men. Nothing wrong with this. We all enjoyed Mother's dessert together, with her great coffee. Barthou took out a crook-neck pipe, by the look of it handmade by himself out of bog oak with an ivory stem. He fired up a bowl of, to my special nose, was Southern Tennessee bright broadleaf, gently toasted, then stored in an old whiskey barrel. He stoked the bowl a few times, its aroma drifting around the table, and by its path, I assume a bit of enchantment on it as well, because it circled around us without irritating anyone. Ma'am, can I ask if there's anything special I can inscribe on your husband's tomb? Barthou said, slowly drawing on the pipe. She didn't hesitate. John Tellafrog, veteran, husband, father, warden of Wormville Territorial Prison for 32 years. There wasn't an animal or plant he didn't love, and he cared for the least of magical folk the best he could. Barthou nodded as he enjoyed his pipe, eyes down at the table, thinking of what Mama had said about Father. I held the prison keys up for Barthou to take and put under his protection, which let Mama begin to release another weight. He took them, held the tip of his wand on the big ring that held all of them, and they began to glow bluish with a crackling sound. Then a bit of smoke fell off of them and dissipated. He put them in his inside coat pocket. That he did, ma'am. That he did, Barthou said, nodding. I will get to it before it gets dark on us. Thank you for the fine supper, he said, tipping his hat to her as he set it on his head. He walked over to the right of the house, by the goat pen I saw from around back earlier. Mama, are you okay? Is Papa wrapped up where the ranger doesn't see it receding? I asked. Yes, I am all right. The big smile again. Your father lived 75 years, and I got 52 with him. He is wrapped up like a mummy, son. I duplicated the original ore jar and wrapped it with him. It is also said to absorb anything that may come off your father. The cheesecloth I have him in is tucked inside the jar. He is wrapped in a thick linen sheet over that. Whatever comes from it will end up in the sealed jar I put in your settled bag. The unchanging view jar I will give Mr. Corton, she said, Your father held his smile. I know he is all right. Nothing surprises me any more about you, Mamma. You are great at everything, I said, cupping my hand over hers. We sat sipping our coffee in silence for a few more minutes, and Arterous stood, asking, May I go check if the professor is available in portrait? Yes, dear. May I also inform him of all that has happened, or would you like to? Oh, please do. I don't want to try talking more about it yet, Mom said. He gave his wand a wave, and the dishes and dinner were cleaned up, leaving the cobbler and coffee. Mom smiled. He went in the house. Mama, will you be all right if we set off tomorrow to determine what we can find out with Father Callius? I asked, ready to stay here indefinitely if she wants. Yes, son. I think I will ask the ranger to try and convince Pandos to stay with me up here, around the house. Barsau said earlier that he plans to have a group from his troop come and move the prisoners tomorrow, probably. He has a day or two to protect our place and guard the prison from up here. I doubt he will stay. His self-imposed curse is strong, and he will go with the prisoners when they leave. She seemed content to stay busy with the tasks that needed to be done. I wouldn't dare ask anything else of her. It was nearly twilight now. The sun had gone below the horizon, and the west rim of our little ranch was bathed in a deep reddish-orange glow, as happens in the heat of late summer, with dust rising as the sun passed through it. We finished the cobbler, which was sweet and filling, and Mamma cleared up the last few dishes. Barthow's tent fluttered in a bit of a breeze, which always kicks up a bit after the sun's heat leaves the ground at a steep angle as it sets. The same wind rises as the sunlight creeps across the land from the east in the mornings, though in late summer the breeze rarely lingers. Barthow comes bow-legged around the corner and sits back down with us, still toking his pipe. It's all ready, Mother, whenever you are. He went right up to Mamma and put his big, coarse hand on her shoulder. Mamma, pursing her lips and trying to be strong, patted him on the hand for an unspoken thanks. Would you take a minute to speak to Bandos for me? Ask him if he would please come stay around the house for a day or two before he decides to leave with the prisoners. Of course, ma'am. Be right back, he said, setting off, fiddling with the keys a bit, and went on in. She wiped a couple of tears with her handkerchief and said, I am ready, son, as soon as he gets back, as long as you are. Yeah, I guess so, Mama. I nodded for a minute. A wolf cry, yipping and howling, echoed out of the prison, which was incredible, knowing how soundproof it was. Even Mother heard it a bit, and had to tend to tears again momentarily, dropping her head back with her mouth open. Bandos hadn't been told until now that Dad was gone. Just as I was easing into this state of dull acceptance, it was now starting for Bandos. He yipped for a whole minute, then it went quiet. A few more minutes, and both Bandos and Barthow came out together. Bandos went straight to Mamma and leaned on her, circling back and forth. Mom turned on the bench and set her legs outside, and he sat down facing her, and slowly rose to put his front paws on her shoulders, and they hugged as best as Bandos could manage. I was very relieved he had agreed to stay with her. I know, my friend, I know. Thank you for staying with me a few days. It means everything. She rubbed his neck, and he sat down, whimpered once, and lay at her feet. All right, gentlemen, let's lay John to rest. He has earned it. She stood, and as did Bandos, and we all went around back. McCourt came and lit on a tree in front of us. Mom and Dad's owls were already there. Beyond the garden and the grassy area, before the monoliths closed in, Barthow had created an obsidian tomb, glistening in the now overhead moonlight. It was 6 feet tall, 8 feet wide, and about 6 feet deep. It depicted probably 100 scenes and rose about 4 inches tall, which wrapped around the whole lot of it. Far too many for me to count right now. The figures were so intricate, so detailed, that even from 10 feet away, I could tell the carvings were of my father and his life. The corners were as pillars, wound with ivy leaves. In the center, facing us, was our family crest, surrounded by our family tree. It was breathtaking, and Mamma leaned on me while she saw it. I had seen many tombs in incredible monasteries and castles in my day. However, I had never truly seen anything this impressive. Talent sometimes lies in the most peculiar containers. Basau, I, I, my lord, Mamma tried, but tears of joy were mixed with her sad ones. Sir, every noble I have ever encountered would pay you whole chests of gulden for such a craftwork. Arterous stood in awe as well. Well, folks, that's all real flattering, but they told me the same thing in school. It disappointed them fierce when I turned them down. I knew even at 14 I wanted no part of spending my days meeting with mourning folk who'd lost their family. I only do this for folks I know deserve it. Your John is one of them. Barthou took his hat off. Mamma opened her sweater a bit, took her wand out, stepped away from my one-armed embrace, and looked at the house. She opened the windows with a swish and pointed it steadily at the upstairs window. Slowly my father drifted out the window, above us, and hovered over the tomb's open top, wrapped tightly in white linen sheets. Barthou began. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be his name. His kingdom come, his will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Give us our daily bread, and lead us beside still waters. Lead us not into temptation, for thine is the kingdom and glory forever. Amen. Good enough, I thought. The help this man has been to us will be forever a gift. What would Mother and I have done had he not come to share sorrow, but only to perform professional duties? I was so grateful. Mamma lowered him gently in, her arm shaking as he settled, and stopped, and she started crying again now. I went to her and held her in a big hug. Barthou waved his wand a bit, and a heavy, ornate lid lifted from behind it, adorned with roses, ringed in small horny toads. He glanced at us. I nodded, and he lowered it silently into place. Bandos howled again, and this time, coyotes in the distance answered. We went back inside, and I made sure Mamma's bed was made up while she sat downstairs, thanking all three of them for everything. She came in as I finished, and I got her tucked in. Love you, Mamma. See you in the morning. You too, little frog. I'm so glad you were here. All of you. Me too. I would have been sick if all this had happened and I wasn't able to make it in time. Good night, son. Good night, Mamma. The others were waiting downstairs. I nodded, and everyone headed off to bed. Bandos went upstairs, nosed Mamma's door open, and lay on the floor right next to her bed, and I went to bed as well. The next morning I got up late. I had no idea what time it was, so I checked my pocket watch on the nightstand. 9:30. Good grief. Guess I was exhausted, and understandably, I suppose. I could smell that breakfast was already cold. Everyone was out front. I dressed and went downstairs to the kitchen table, where I had scrambled eggs, biscuits, and gravy. I was so hungry, I sat and ate it cold. The coffee was hot and great. I wiped my mouth on my sleeve, since Mom was outside, and went on out with them. Morning, boy. Doing okay? Barthou asked. Yes, sir, . And thank you to whoever cooked breakfast and left me a plate. Arterous made it, and did pretty well with his first gravy for biscuits, I'd say, Mamma said. Indeed he did. I gave him a big smile. Son, I've a few rangers and a few in training gonna show up here any minute so we can get these prisoners out of here today, he said, pointing at Wormwell. When we head out, y'all go ahead and close that up for good, will you? Yeah, there's no love lost with that being shut up with us. I looked at Mamma, who was nodding thoughtfully. Oh, guess what, son? Mamma was excited. Bandos has decided to stay here permanently. She gave his big panting head a good rub. That's great. That makes me happy for both of you, I said. Father, most of all, will be glad he is staying. I'm sure of that. A moment later, 16 fellows appeared, each more scroungy and worn out than the next. Dirty, scrawny, hungry-looking, I couldn't tell which were the rangers from the rest. Barthou went over to the one on the far left of the group and was handed a small wooden box. He brought it over to Mamma and opened it up. Inside was a small revolver and 3 more cylinders, set in the cork frame of the box. Ma'am, I had them bring this here special from our gunsmith down in Bayha. I want you to keep it with you, as there ain't nothing it can't handle. This here pistol was made for your hand. Lots of feather, and look here at these. He picked up one after the other of the cylinders, pointing to the words engraved on each. The one in the gun is regular, which'n you might not need. These here are each loaded with sort of one-core steady shells. They can only be used once each shot, but there ain't no magic it can't defeat. We want you safe as can be here at your place. Barthou set it gently into Mamma's hands, and turned to the motley gaggle of fellows. All you others who will come here, members this locale, this lady will need checking on any time you're about these parts. That's an order. He surveyed each one's face, making sure they were paying close attention. All righty then. He gave a slight bow and walked over to the front of the prison, unlocking the gate and then the door. I'm going to get these fellows down there and bound up to the prisoners. Then I'll undo the enchantment so we can dislocate from down there and be off. Y'all take care now. I'll be seeing you in a couple of days when we get them all settled at the new place. All right. They proceeded down below, Bandos watching intently as the door closed behind them. Barthou was last to go in, waving his hand at us as he walked away. After about 5 minutes, Bandos flipped his head up sharply as if he was watching something. I looked at Arterous and Mamma, and she said, Yes, they're gone. We all sighed at the end of so many things. Mamma, have any idea of how you'd like to close the prison? I asked. Yes. Did you know I never stepped foot inside? Not once. I would very much like to open its top and let the light of the sun in, leaving the stairs and cells, but ripping the iron from its place and making something useful of it. Only when green things grow again will I be able to walk where your father had to spend so much of his time, she said, handing me the pistol case Barthou had given her. A more fitting tribute I couldn't imagine. Let the earth, too, heal from the sourness and labor it had undergone in its duty to those souls it shared space with. If we can, please, inspect as closely as possible that cell again, maybe leaving everything intact. We will be as quick as possible, I suggested. No sunlight yet? She asked. No. If something in that cell, or anywhere else, can exist only in the dark, we should be able to find it. Only the cell bars and doors, please, I said. I suppose that's a good idea, she agreed. A wave of her wrist, wand in hand, and the gate and door were gone. clinking and losing a bit of rocky rubble also, and the cell gates came out one at a time from the mouth of the prison, stacked neatly standing next to a stone nearby. You may need to inspect those as well for signs of magic. She was right. Inscriptions would have been impossible to detect from outside the cells, given the darkness. Arterous snapped his fingers and the torches lit. Bandos, checking with Mother first, got a nod and proceeded down with us. He had never been in any of the cells either, and was more than excited to explore everything. I followed them in, double-checking what I had seen before and examining areas I had missed more closely, as I had been concerned about the population. Literally nothing other than tally counts, scratched in cells, curses, and scribblings, which made no sense to me. In the cell with the small ball of roots on the sleeping cove, the formation had shrunk somewhat and retracted toward the ceiling, hanging about 6 inches above the flat surface and bed. I wondered if my father ever told the prisoners that every one of the pillows and blankets they used to sleep on, the mandated stone slab, was made by my mother. Each one had been worn through in places, some ruined completely, but some, it seemed, had been cared for as the only comfort they were allowed. Once I reached the bottom and found nothing of significance, I went back up and out. Mother had finished carrying the last of the breakfast things into the house and was now coming back out. Bandos emerged first, tail wagging, tongue hanging out the side of his snout, then Arterous, tucking his monocle away in his chest pocket. Mother, I think it's all right to go ahead and open it up, and we can maybe go speak with Father Callias. If you are all right alone here for most of the day, I said, loud enough for her to hear. I think I am ready. Let me sit at the table here and begin. Oh, and I won't be alone. Bandos will be with me. She sat on the bench closest to the entrance, and back to the table, sat quite straight, thinking. She drew her wand, eliciting a slight smile from the corner of her mouth, and circled it several times in the air, pointing towards a top capstone that covered the entire winding cylindrical structure below. The stones and slabs all rose above, slowly rotating as they did, until a great mass was collected in the air. She directed it all to the left of the opening her work had created below, and allowed it to settle among the stone plates and columns that made up the labyrinth around our home in our little dell. That created a rise of solid rock and earth on the eastern perimeter of the old prison site. Then she brought in several tons of good, dark earth, weathered wear from the stones mostly, and created a bed high enough to collect the early sun as it rose each morning. Another few conductions of her skilled wand and felled trees lying around our land assembled themselves into a large box-like structure of framing around the whole plot of new earth. I will plant some of the varieties you send me, son, from all your work abroad. Some ivies and honeysuckle on the edge of the well should climb down and bring bees and beauty into the depths as a start. She smiled at her own work, quite pleased, and began again. More good earth swirled around the top of the well, drawn from all around us until it, too, was in great quantity, then separated out into individual and equal streams enough for each cell below to fill the floors of all of them a foot deep. She stopped and set her hands on her knees, smiling and looking around. How about this? She lifted her wand hand again, and speaking a spell I don't remember hearing before, great balls of hot orange glass appeared, brilliant in the sunlight high up. One at a time, each one was drawn out into a square, a rectangle, or a round sheet. They began to have brass bars gather onto their edges and then drop singly into a frame shaped like a dome to cover the garden above, becoming the new top of the well. A beautiful cut glass and leaded crystal door with a rounded top assembled itself and sat gently into a frame facing us. Mother grinned, tight-lipped, as big as she could, and glanced at us. There was but one thing we could do: applaud. As we did, the grin exploded into a smile, and she covered her mouth with her wand in hand as she giggled. It truly was beautiful, brilliant in the light, and a perfect way to let the place heal from the prison, allowing her to enjoy the space. Had Father still been here, even he wouldn't have given her something so fantastic in that place. That is amazing. It is indeed an incredible structure, and honors both of you quite well, Mamma, I told her. Indeed, ma'am. Some of the arboretums in Europe are not nearly as grand, Arterous stated plainly, also surveying it in amazement. Is it all right if I begin preparing to go visit Father Callias, Mother? I asked. Yes, yes. I really need him to know about John, but I don't want you boys out after dark. I don't want to be here alone after dark either, she said. We went to saddle the horses and fill the canteens, packing a bit of extra alfalfa and oats as well, just in case. It wasn't wise to travel any distance away from the protection of our homestead without being ready to survive a couple of days. We checked our pistols and revolvers, giving them a thorough once-over to ensure all parts were tight, sights were adjusted correctly, and extra balls, powder, caps, and wadding were easily accessible. Mama brought out 3 round loaves of fresh sourdough, making sure I knew one was for Father Callias. Arterous and I called our owls and sent them both to fly ahead and wait for us about halfway there. After giving Mother a big hug, making sure she was all right for the day, we started up and out of the rock maze and through the stand of trees that concealed us, passing the shimmer wall of the dome, and out towards the west, where the mission was. It was typically hot for this time of year on the plains ahead of us, and mirages danced among the grasses, standing dead still in the cloudless heat. Our owls circled back once and screeched at us, probably decided between them to come check on us, and went on ahead. I had visited this mission before, with my father, but it was many years ago, when a different priest was in charge. I don't remember his name. So I rode in front and stopped only occasionally for a drink of water. The ride was a little more than an hour in this heat, staying in the prairies that rolled up and down, with the stands of woods to the north on our right. About 3/4 of an hour or so, I caught the stench of a rattlesnake, which even for me is rare. I had only detected them under 2 circumstances: if they had just shed their skin, or had dropped scat. I eased up on the reins, and we both came to a stop. I raised my hand so Arterous might stay quiet, and we could hear it in the grass. Not a minute later I detected it, but he couldn't, as it was close to 100 feet ahead, going left to right across the path we were riding. Once I knew it was far enough off, I put my hand down and told him what had happened. Not wise to let a horse wander up and startle one. You might get thrown off and right into striking distance of the snake itself. Additionally, there is no way of knowing if anyone is watching us, so using magic to dispatch it or firing on it can both draw unwanted attention. Not 5 minutes later, my nose caught something else. From the north, I was pretty sure. Hogs. Domestic pigs who were unwell, maybe mistreated or underfed. And a very sick human woman. There had to be a small home or something up in the trees, but since I couldn't detect the odors of any other people, I decided to tell Arterous and investigate. A woman fighting illness alone out here isn't to be abandoned to chance when possible.